So I've cut all of these apart now, all 50 of them, and that means then that the sewing was done when the piece of fabric was secure and we weren't sewing along a bias edge, and now those bias edges are beautifully sewn. So what I'm doing now then is I'm pressing these two triangles up like so, and my secret weapon here for accuracy is a little bit of spray starch. I use this stuff a lot when I'm quilting. It just means that the fabric is a little stiffer, it's a little easier to manipulate, and it washes out beautifully once the quilt is finished. It just behaves better. So I'm choosing the two little squares that are the same as these little squares. Remember, we've got marked the line on there with pencil. And then I'm going to position that carefully and pin it so that it looks like that. So that's what it was before, and now I've positioned that one with the line going downwards so that that unit looks like that. Put it on the pile with all the others. This one, put the unit, the little square unit on in the corner there like that. It behaves so much better when it's starched, it really does. Okay then, so I'll do this one. And first of all, I iron them closed, and you might hear, if you watch other quilting channels, they talk about setting the seam, and what that means is we're just kind of ironing that row of stitching down so that it sits flat on the seam. And then I'm ironing this carefully open, and the carefully part is because what I don't want I want to make sure I iron this without getting a ridge here. Sometimes if you don't press very carefully, I'm exaggerating now, you can get a bit of a ridge here, which sets the accuracy of the piece completely out of kilter. So we just need to make sure, without pulling, we just need to make sure we roll that back beautifully like so. And then I'm going to put my little bit of spray starch on there and give that a really good press. That one on like that. Little pin. And then I'm going to, when I finish these, I've got about another 20 to do, and then I'm 20 pairs or so. I've probably done about 30 there. Then I'm going to chain piece these. So we'll come back when I do that. So we're back again now, and I'm chain piecing all of these now. I've cut them all in half, I've ironed the triangles out, I've pinned on the matching square here on the diagonal, and now I'm going to chain piece these units together now. So I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch from that line, which I can see, yeah, you can just about see it, that pencil line that I put on yesterday. Now I can't see the bed of the machine now, which is beautifully marked up with quarters and 2/3 and whatever you want to sew. It's marked up with that. I can't see it because I'm sewing in the middle of the fabric. However, there is a little line on the presser foot there, and I'm lining my pencil line up with that line there, which is giving me 1/4 inch. Okay, so chain piecing is this. I come to the end of the piece and the machine needle comes off, but I don't cut it. I just keep it on there. I gently ease that up. So the next one, lift the foot a little. I'm only sewing down one side of the line. I'm going to do all of them, and there were 50, so now there are 100 of these. I'm going to sew all the way down one side of the line, turn them round and do down the other side of the line and then cut them. So I'm going to do that now, and we'll come back to that at the end. I've come to the end now. I'm at the end of all 100 units, and I've sewn down one side, whoops, let me see, down one side of the diagonal line. So now what I'm going to do is going to flip them all round. I'm going to put them all round here on this chair next to me, all of them in a great long string, all joined together by the chain piecing, 100 of them, and position the needle on the other side of the line. I don't need to cut these off, I'm just going to let these feed in, and then when I come to the end, I just lift it up, sew down the next one, pin in the pin pot, and I'm going to do all of those. I'll just show you what that first one looks like. Okay, it looks like that then. So now I've sewed on this one either side of that line. So I'm going to do that on all 100 of these. Then again, I'm going to carefully cut down the pencil line so that what I've then got, when I press this open, I've got one flying goose. Okay then, so now all the pieces have been sewn properly together, so that what we've got now, once they're all sewn and cut, is one flying goose unit with 2 bits of sky. Now what these are, they're great, and there are 4 in the way that that was constructed. There are 4 of them, 4 geese. But they're a bit tatty looking, look. Even though I've been careful about doing my 1/4 inch seam and cutting really carefully and accurately, we still get these little dog ends here, these little ears here. But I need to tidy that up because I want to make sure that when I sew them together, I've lost all those little dog ears. So there are 200 of these units now, and what I'm doing is I'm just cutting these little dog ears off. You can kind of negotiate them with them on, but I don't like to do that. This is a lot now about accuracy, and the thing that I want to try and do now when I stitch these together is not lose the tip of that goose there, of that triangle, not lose it in the seam of the one above. And I've just pinned these ones up on the design board behind me. That's not the finished layout. I've just pinned a few up so that we can have a look at them. Because the interesting thing that happens with the goose here, but then the sky makes another triangle facing downwards, but not always, because if you look where I've got the purple one next to the pink one, that makes a different colour. So I like to mess about with it a little bit, because of course here's a blue one here, there's some pink ones coming up here. They're not all the same colour sky, they're not all this colour sky. It's kind of fiddly doing this, trimming up these units, but it does, when I'm stitching them together, it does make it more accurate. I've done a few, and I've got 200 of these now to trim up, and then I'm going to start stitching them together. So we'll come back when I've done that and stitch these units together into 12-inch by 6-inch units, which will then make the bigger quilt. So the layout of this is the fun part. I start getting to this part now and it starts to get really exciting. The mechanics of this, just gently doing rhythmical stitching and cutting and pressing and so on. It's a lovely meditation. I enjoy it very much. But then comes the exciting part, when you've got all the units like a jigsaw and you start to put them together and change the layouts, which is where the big design board comes into its own. All right then, so I will come back to you when I've trimmed all these up and we'll sew a few together. Okay, see you soon.
I trimmed and trimmed last night until it was really late and decided that I would do the next part in part 3. So thanks so much for watching.